2 Kings chapter 5. Now Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great and honorable man in the eyes of his master, because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. He was also a mighty man of valor, but a leper. And the Syrians had gone on raids and had brought back captive a young girl from the land of Israel. She waited on Naaman's wife. Then she said to her mistress, "If only my master were with the prophet who is in Samaria, for he would heal him of his leprosy." And Naaman went in and told his master, saying, "Thus and thus said the girl who is from the land of Israel." So this girl has basically been kidnapped and taken to this land, captured, and made a slave, a servant to this man's wife. And she could have been very bitter about that, and instead she's still thinking about how she can be used of God and give God the glory. So she sees that she's with this family, she's taking care of the wife, and her husband has leprosy, and she's telling her about this man of God, a prophet of God in their land that could help. So it just reminds us we might find ourselves in a situation we didn't really want to be in, but we can still be used of God even in that. Then the king of Syria said, "Go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel." So he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 changes of clothing. Then he brought the letter to the king of Israel, which said, "Now be advised, when this letter comes to you, that I have sent Naaman my servant to you, that you may heal him of his leprosy." And it happened, when the king of Israel read the letter, that he tore his clothes and said, "Am I God to kill and make alive, that this man sends a man to me to heal him of his leprosy? Therefore, please consider and see how he seeks a quarrel with me." So the king's totally misreading this. He is smart enough to know that he can't heal anybody of anything. He's just a man. But what he's not thinking is he's the king of Israel, and it shows how he has a lack of spiritual thoughts and isn't even thinking about inquiring of a prophet of God. So he's just thinking again about what he can do, his limited, instead of thinking, well, what could God do? So it was when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, "Why have you torn your clothes? Please let him come to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel." Then Naaman went with his horses and chariot, and he stood at the door of Elisha's house. And Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, "Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored to you, and you shall be clean." But Naaman became furious and went away and said, "Indeed, I said to myself, he will surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God and wave his hand over the place and heal the leprosy." So it might seem weird that Elisha sent a messenger to talk to Naaman instead of getting up and doing it himself, but there's probably something there too, where Elisha doesn't want it to be about him. He wants this person to know that God is the one that's healing. And then it shows in Naaman's heart that he wanted this big display, wanted it done publicly, where he waves his hand in the air and miraculously healed and all this. And what God asked him to do was so simple. "Are not the Abana and the Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean?" So he turned and went away in a rage. So in his mind, he's also misreading that. He's thinking it's about the water, because Elisha directed him to go to the Jordan, saying our water is superior to the water of the Jordan, just talking about the appearance or the cleanliness. But it wasn't about the water. It was about what God wanted him to do. And his servants came near and spoke to him and said, "My father, If the prophet had told you to do something great, would you not have done it? How much more then when he says to you, wash and be clean? So he went down and dipped 7 times in the Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God. And his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. So, his servants had the insight to talk him into it, saying if he'd asked you to do something great, meaning difficult, you would have been like, okay, well, it'll be worth it. But he asked you to do something so basic, so simple. Why don't you at least do that? So he heals him, and he returned to the man of God, he and all his aides. So they come back to Elisha, and came and stood before him. And he said, indeed, now I know that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel. Now therefore, please take a gift from your servant. But he said, as the Lord lives, before whom I stand, I will receive nothing. And he urged him to take it, but he refused. So Elisha wanted to make sure that he knew that this thing was of God, that it's not something he does for money. So he refused the gift. Now Naaman said, then if not, please let your servant be given 2 mule loads of earth, for your servant will no longer offer either burnt offering or sacrifice to other gods, but to the Lord. Yet in this thing may the Lord pardon your servant, when my master goes into the temple of Rimmon to worship there, and he leans on my hand, and I bow down in the temple of Rimmon. When I bow down in the temple of Rimmon, may the Lord please pardon your servant in this thing. Then he said to him, go in peace. So he departed from him a short distance. So this is interesting. So Naaman, who doesn't know everything that we know about God from reading his word, he knows that God is holy. He knows that God is real. And he knows that God doesn't want him worshiping other gods. So he's saying, you didn't receive my gift, but my promise is that I'm only going to worship God. So he asks for this dirt to take back so that he can have a place to worship God. Not that he needs the dirt, but it's symbolic of, this dirt came from this place where God healed me, and these are God's people. So if I take this dirt and transplant it to where I'm at, that symbolically will be my spot to worship God, so that I'm identifying with God there. But he also recognizes, because of his job, as he is serving in a pagan, area where his king doesn't have this belief in God, and he's worshiping idols in the temple of Rimmon, he's saying, by being his right-hand man, he's going to make me be there with him. He's going to kill me if I don't do my job. Can you pardon me when I have to bow with him, because I'm bowing outwardly, but not in my heart. I'm not worshiping this God of Rimmon. And God shows grace to him here. He says, go in peace. So he's acknowledging what he's saying, and he's understanding it. But Gehazi, this is where the story takes a dark turn. After seeing all this, after seeing all the miracles that God has done through Elisha, look what Gehazi does. Gehazi's a servant. Gehazi was there when he healed the woman's dead son. He's there with him all the time. And look what Gehazi does. Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said, look, my master has spared Naaman this Syrian, while not receiving from his hands what he brought. But as the Lord lives, I will run after him and take something from him. He's greedy. So Gehazi pursued Naaman. When Naaman saw him running after him, he got down from the chariot to meet him and said, is all well? And he said, all is well. My master has sent me, saying, indeed, just now, 2 young men of the sons of the prophets have come to me from the mountains of Ephraim. Please give them a talent of silver and 2 changes of garments. So Naaman said, please take 2 talents. So he asked for 1 talent of silver, he gives him 2. And he urged him, and he bound 2 talents of silver in 2 bags with 2 changes of garments, and handed them to 2 of his servants, and they carried them on ahead of him. When he came to the citadel, he took them from their hand and stored them away in the house. Then he let the men go, and they departed. So Gehazi makes up lies about this whole story. He knows he's got these gifts with him, and it makes it sound like Elisha changed his mind. So he's lying about everything. How does he think he's going to get away with that when God tells Elisha things? That's what I don't understand. So he went in and stood before his master. Elisha said to him, "Where did you go, Gehazi?" And he said, "Your servant did not go anywhere." Once you start lying, it's easy to keep lying. Then he said to him, "Did not my heart go with you when the man turned back from his chariot to meet you? Is it time to receive money and to receive clothing, olive groves and vineyards, sheep and oxen, male and female servants? Therefore the leprosy of Naaman shall cling to you and your descendants forever." And he went out from his presence leprous, as white as snow. So that's the end of chapter 5. So the judgment on Gehazi was immediate, and it was bad. I mean, he ends up with leprosy. And Elisha's point, is that we shouldn't be doing these things for money. So that would speak to a lot of the televangelists, a lot of the scandals that are taking place over time, where people are, saying they need a new jumbo jet, all these different kinds of things where they're, taking advantage of people. That's the end of chapter 5.